So first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Calvin, for coming along today. The reason why me and Rob's at the back, he's the American gentleman. The reason why we've organised this today, this is our second event we've organised, because we wanted to start getting people who we only see on TV, who only seem to speak in London, not their fault, but we want to start getting people to come up to Manchester and speak to us because it's more affordable. Otherwise, you're looking at £150 train ticket, £200 hotel overnight in London. The next thing you know, it's the price of a week's holiday, and none of us can really afford that. So I thought, let's organise some events up in Manchester. It can't be that hard. I'm sure places are crying out to take my booking for a room. And both events now have been a nightmare. The first one was a friend's house around the corner, the Quakers' friend's house. They cancelled on us, so we had to have it in a pub around the corner, upstairs in a room. And we thought, that's great at that pub, so we'll hold this event in the same pub. Then they cancelled on us because on Twitter, 17 people tweeted the pub and said, why are you hosting a racist? You. Why are you? So I went in and spoke to the manager of the pub and said, do you know who Calvin Robinson is? And he went, no. So why have you cancelled the event? He went, well, look on Twitter. I went, do you know Calvin Robinson is a black man? He went, is he? Do you know he's been ordained into a church? He went, has he? I went, let's have a deal. Let's hold the event here and we'll stop talking about the venue. No, too late now. I've given my word. And I went, well, your word's worth shit, isn't it? Like you've cancelled a black man for being racist, who's also a priest. Oh, similar to yeah, deacon. So the first question really is, was that expected? Did you think that was going to happen? And what's your response like? Because you're called racist all the time online, and the abuse you get is quite horrendous.
First of all, I'm not a racist. I hate them all equally. That's obviously a joke before anyone tweets that.
Calvin said he's a racist!
The word racist means something else now. Just the same as the word hateful. I'm hateful as well. I'm racist, I'm hateful. What that means is I disagree with you. When people say to me, you are a racist or you are a hateful person, I know that they actually just disagree with my views. That's all it is. So I don't take it to heart. It's just dumb, really, isn't it? People have lost the ability to debate, to actually express their opinions in any meaningful way. So they just shut the debate down and say, I don't want to engage with you, I can't engage with you, you're the enemy. It's very, very sad. We're all polarised. But I didn't expect it up here in Manchester. I'm from Mansfield, Nottinghamshire, Midlands boy. Yes. Things are a bit different up north. In London, I expect it because London's full of snowflakes, everyone's very fragile, they can't deal with anything down there, it's ridiculous. But up here, I did not expect it at all. I've been to a lot of universities this year and seen a lot of fragility there too, a lot of snowflakes. But actually, what I'm seeing as I go around the country is the more elite the institution, the worse it gets. So Nottingham was fantastic, although there was a protest just stopping from going. But when I got there, the people were great. Exeter, brilliant. Even Bristol, surprisingly, which is a woke city, great. Cambridge, the worst I've been to so far. They couldn't hear a single word, you might see it on YouTube, but a single word I was saying, they could not cope. They were physically uncomfortable with hearing my point of view. Durham University, real issues up there too, and Oxford, I actually walked out, that one just so woke. So yeah, avoid the elite institution. If you've got kids that are looking to go to university, don't send them to Oxbridge or Durham, whatever you do, send them to a proper university in a proper city.
Thank you. My next question is, do you look at your social media replies? Because I've been through one or two things on social media before I got kicked off Twitter. And no, I'm not back. So Trump's
Everyone
back.
message Elon Musk.
Everyone, free the Buckley one. Free the Buckley one. I did a video on it, I still didn't get that. But I've spent time before when I've had little Twitter storms and you pull some out that's not popular. And I've read the comments and I can handle one or two, and I can handle 5 or 6. But then you read more and more. You read some good ones. The good ones don't register at all. What register is the negative ones. And I think that's because as social creatures, we're predisposed to always be looking for and being reactive to people in our tribe telling us when we're wrong, when we're doing something they don't like, because we need them on our side, otherwise we could die in the tribe. We can't make our tribe hate us. So with that in us, I'm reading negative comments, and even though I think I'm really tough, it gets to you. And I've only had a fraction of what you get. So do you read it? How do you handle it? I'd be really interested to know.
Thank you. Yeah, I do read it. I try. Well, I've got my Twitter set up so that first and foremost, when I go to my mentions, I only see people that are following me back. So I'm not seeing all of the trolls straight away. But I try to engage as much as I can with people who are positive. I try to I try to reply as much as I can. It gets difficult the more followers I get, but I really want to reinforce that community that's built around my Twitter account and be friendly with people and be friends with people. But the trolls, I block liberally, and people hate being blocked, and they think it's snowflakey. Maybe it is snowflakey, but I'm not thick-skinned. I don't like the abuse. So if someone's hostile or abusive, block. I don't need to see what they're saying. And they'll say, oh, you're for free speech. And I'm like, well, yes, I am. And you're free to continue speaking your horrible nonsense, but I don't need to see it. I don't need to listen to it. So I actually enjoy blocking people. I spend quite a bit of time blocking these horrible people, making me feel a bit better. But in general, I try to, the way I manage it is, I spend far too long every day on Twitter, because I do get a lot more, I want to see more. But I take blocks out, so I'll say, okay, Monday, just not going on Twitter whatsoever, for my own mental health, because when you get that much negativity coming in constantly, it can eat away at you. And you're right, you see 50 positive comments and 1 negative, and it's the negative that stays in your head. It's so annoying, but it's hard to get around that, and I haven't found a way yet.
It is really, really difficult. Now, everybody in the room knows that you are a religious man. You're now a deacon of the Free Church of England. Obviously, your religion has played a part in your view of the world, the view of the country, your morality. When did you realise you were religious? And when did you realise that was dictating your life and your way forward? Because you've given up jobs to pursue this now.
Very good question. So I always, this sound a bit fluffy and stuff, but indulge me. I always felt like I had a relationship with God. I always prayed as a kid, and I always felt like my prayers were heard, and sometimes answered, and that was important to me. But I didn't have a relationship with the church. In fact, I've always been against organised religion, because I always see the corruption and the dodgy people. That's always put me off. That was a massive barrier for a long time. It took me a great while to get over that. But I realised you can't be a Christian without the church, because we're called to be together. It says, when 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, that's when He is with us. So I had to join a church, and once I did, I realised I was called to ordained ministry. And this is what every single thing I do, I try to centre it around my faith. I try to, my politics, my TV work, whatever I'm doing, comes from my religion, which is trying to make this country a better place, try to preach the truth, and try to let people know that there is some good news. I don't always get it right, but that's the objective. I don't know how long it will last. So for me, the platform that I've been given is, I see it as a gift of God. I see it as a tool to spread the gospel. And when it's no longer necessary for me to do that, it will be taken away. So I don't think I'm in this to become a TV presenter, or in this a media personality, or a politician, or a journalist, or whatever. I'm literally using the platform that I feel I've been gifted to spread the good news. So I don't take it for granted at all. I think, actually, I could probably get cancelled tomorrow. It's very likely that I get cancelled tomorrow, based on what I've tweeted today. But if that happens, so be it. I've produced, if I blow my own trumpet, I've produced an amazing Christmas special that's going to come out on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, that I think that is the penultimate, or the ultimate thing of my career so far, in that if I do get cancelled today, I'm happy with that, because I think we've done the Lord's work, and people will be rejoicing and celebrating Christmas in a truly Christian way on national television in a Christian country. I'm very proud of that, and I'm happy with that.
In your previous talk, you mentioned that, especially England, is a special place, and we should be proud of being English and living in England and English culture. And how I view it is, almost on every metric, you look at certain countries, only today, over the last 50 years, 100 years, this country is successful because A, people want to come here, people are not killing themselves to get out of here, so therefore there must be something we're doing right in this country. Now 1,000 years ago, it may be the Middle East who had the Enlightenment, who were doing some great things, and not necessarily people who went to the Dark Ages 1,500 years ago. So things change over time, but as the modern time now, and how I look at it is, if you have a winning football team, you don't need to change it. You don't need to start thinking we need diversity in this team because we need more basketball players. No, we play football in this team. We need more darts players. No. We play football in this team. If you want to come and join this team, then you need to play football. That's how we keep the country, not the way it is at the moment, because things are always developing, but I'm tired of constantly being told that we need to change the country. And when you ask them why, can you point to somewhere that's better? They can never point to anywhere better. Never point to a policy in another country. If we only had that one policy, that's fine. We don't do everything perfectly here. But on the grand scheme of things, it's an amazing country that's produced some amazing things. That's changed the world. We ended slavery. The Industrial Revolution, the English language, we've done so much. And we've done some bad things, because we all do bad things. But on the whole, it's amazing. And I feel you feel that. And as an Englishman, talking to another Englishman, in fact, you're more English than me, because your grandparents were immigrants. My father was an immigrant. So if we look at it like that, you've got more English blood in you than I do. But because you have a 6-inch afro and light brown skin, you're perceived sometimes by the real racists as not being English, but then you're also perceived by people who may look like you, or people who think they're wonderful, and they perceive you as the devil because of your skin and your haircut. How can you not agree with all this? And that's what I see online. There was that case where that charity worker, CEO, tweeted that you're not black enough, or I can't remember what she said now, and you highlighted it, and she paid a penalty for that. What do you think of those things that happen?
Two things. The first thing you mentioned, I think, is all about inclusivity. So at the start of the night I spoke about diversity, and that's our great downfall. The other downfall is inclusivity, because we feel like to be inclusive, we have to welcome people to take on board their values, take on board their morality, their culture. Actually, to be inclusive, we say, you are welcome. Come and take on board ours, the ours is great. Come and join us. That's inclusivity. It's the same in the country as it is in the church. I always say to people, the church doesn't need to be more inclusive. We don't need to be looking at work issues of transgenderism or homosexual marriage, whatever. We can say, actually, come, you're all welcome to join us to be changed through an encounter with Christ. And like the same in the country, you're welcome to join England, take on board our language, our culture, our values. The second point, it was the race trust, and she called me a house Negro. She lost her job actually, and well, you say good, but I don't believe in cancel culture. I actually wrote an article defending her right to call me that, because I do think there should be free speech. For me, is the same as free speech for them. And if free speech means anything, it means protecting people that we disagree with. And that's where the left often fall apart, because they only want to protect their own right to speak. It was a difficult thing for me to say, but as a Christian, I believe in forgiveness, and how to forgive her and then promote her right to say what she said, even though I think she's wrong. But that's the difference between us and them, in that I think she's wrong. She thinks I'm evil. But that's changing. We've said for years and years that the right see the left is wrong, the left see the right is evil. I'm starting to see the left as evil. I'm starting to see the things that they're doing are breaking down our society, our way of life, our families, our communities. And that is not a good thing. The opposite of good is evil. So I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm coming around to their mindset.
Very interesting. I'm glad that you forgave her, because I was in a similar situation with trustees of a charity who cite me, and from the very beginning I never had ill will against them. I thought they were cowardly and they were wrong, and even today I've left the door open for them to contact me to potentially apologise or even just to explain why they did what they did. Did you get an explanation of that lady? Did she ever contact you directly?
She doubled down.
She doubled down. And she also blamed a member of staff, and she also said, she said, I didn't tweet that. I left my phone on the side unlocked, and a member of staff picked up, and it's like, come on. Yeah, the dog ate my homework. It's the modern version of that. Yeah. So, you are now involved with and working with GB News. I think it's a great channel. I've done it many times. I've even tried to float an idea of my show. Never get a reply when I float an idea of my show. Understandably. I think it's great. I think GB News is great. It's given people like me and Calvin and other people an opportunity to have their voices heard who would never get on the BBC, ITV, Sky. And I'm not saying what either of us say is right, but it's a different point of view, and the more points of view we can have, the more people can work out what they think is correct. What's your biggest learning of working on GB News? Is it as good as it looks, or is it just a slightly different version of the BBC and ITV? Because you're more heavily involved than me. I just don't know.
No, it is great. It is a fantastic resource. It's great that we are able to put forward that different perspective. But it is still in the entertainment industry. It is still in TV land. There are still limits on what we can say, how we can say it.
What I like about GB News is it isn't just my point of view. It's not just the complete opposite of the BBC and Sky, because then that's just another echo chamber, just like BBC and Sky. I want people on there, and some presenters I don't watch because I don't agree with them, and it's slightly annoying me. But I don't want them gone. They still need to be there, because sometimes I listen to them, it's like, ooh, you just made me think slightly differently than I did 10 minutes ago. And that has to be a good thing. And it's also a good thing that they may be bringing other people to watch the channel who agree with them, who then may listen to Calvin and go, ooh. So we need to be careful that we're just not the opposite of what we disagree with, because that gets us nowhere. And especially when people talk about politics before, about changing the system. I've not made my mind up yet. Where I am at the moment, changing this system really is, we've got a really good system. It's not perfect. All systems are crap. Ours is just probably least crap than most systems. If we change our system, we don't know what's going to come after that and how that changes. If we want to change, if you live in a democracy, you get the government you deserve. So it's easy to always look at the government and politicians going, you're not doing what I want, you're wrong with it. We vote these people in as a nation. So just because they're being voted in and we don't agree with them, or someone agrees with them, or someone is apathetic and doesn't care, it's down to us as a nation to make politicians realise they're our servants, they're not our masters. And we only can do that through the ballot. So we need to take some responsibility ourselves on the politicians we have, because we vote them in. What do you think of that little lecture I gave them?
No, I think you're right. We do get the politicians we deserve. But the problem is so many people don't think we need to vote anymore. Well, my vote's not worthwhile. What I used to do, canvassing, I'd be knocking on doors and say, well, everyone in my area votes Labour, there's no point in me voting for the Conservatives or Progressive Party, whichever party I was a part of at the time. I was like, that mindset is the problem. If everyone in the area got out and voted, the other party would be out. But we all think that our vote is meaningless. And of course, we all have more power than we know. But I'm with you that, well, similar to what I said at the beginning, more people, more normal people need to stand up. And to get to that point, we need to take over some of these associations. I do think the Conservative Party is the party of government. So it would be nice if some people joined or already members of the Conservative Party joined the associations, became officers, and then got to select the people that were going forward as candidates. That might be where some entryism might be where it's taking over and getting some decent people in politics. But likewise, the small parties, and I'm always happy to support UKIP. And
what we're not doing is we're not separating the national politics from the local politics.
True.
And by failing to separate those two massive, important differences, people don't really, because that separation isn't there, people are not doing the most important things, which is at local levels, electing the local representatives.
We're tribal, like Nick said earlier, we're tribal people, and we belong to a tribe. And no one actually ever votes based on policies, I don't believe. I don't believe people vote based on manifestos or policies for the most part. They vote for their tribe, or to prevent the other tribe from getting in, and that's a big part of the problem. And look at the last 12 years, every single election the Conservative governments have run on, don't vote for Corbyn, we're not Corbyn, or we're not Miliband, or we're not them, vote against them. And there's never a reason to vote for Conservatives. It's the same with Labour, so not just picking on Conservatives. But we vote for our tribe. We need to get out of that tribal mentality and vote for people that will improve our local area. So,
I don't believe people who say there's no point voting, that's why I don't vote. I think that is their gold-plated get-out clause of why they don't vote. The reason why most people don't vote is because their life is too good. They've not got it hard enough. It's okay, it's not great, and I'm sure my life could be better, but it's not worth being worried about it or going out on a wet Thursday evening to vote, because I've still got a job, I've got a house, I've got rent, I'm on benefits, I've got children. We're on a slow managed decline in this country, and we have been since the Second World War. Everything's a slow decline, and because it's slow, we don't realise what's happening, and therefore, as humans, as a tribal instinct, we're quite happy with the status quo because things could always be worse. I'm getting to a stage now where I actually hope Labour win the next election, and they will destroy the country in 4 years. And then from that destruction will come a new Margaret Thatcher. Somebody will come and they will save the country, because all we're getting now is slow decline.
no, Mick's right. The Labour, what we need to do is actually destroy the Conservative Party. A poll that came out of the Express week before last suggested that if there was an election today, all of them would be wiped out except for Sir John Hayes, and he is actually the most sound member of Parliament. So I would like to see all of them lose their seats, so they have to refine their centre, discover what it means to be Conservative again, and stand on principles. And that might mean 4 or 5 years of a Labour government, but actually I don't see how that would be much worse than what's going on at the moment. The current Conservatives are pro-tax, pro-immigration, pro-lockdown, pushing the vaccine, pretty much everything the Labour Party would do, and pro-wokeness too. They push through... Say again, sorry. He's who's in charge?
Yeah. Who voted for him?
You want me vote again?
Will we ever have a vote again?
You'd be like, Sean.
I'm not going to tell.
Hasn't that been tried in America? You get Biden for 4 years. He destroys the country. Destroys the country. And then they rig the election. It's not really a winning strategy. I mean, I think we need to think about.
Yeah. So everyone's come today to speak to Calvin, so I think it's only fair for the last 20 minutes to have pure questions from the audience. So if you can put your hand up, if you can speak as loudly as you can so the camera can pick it up, it's going to go on YouTube, then I'm going to try to give answer everybody. So I'll start here and I'll move across. So this lady here.
We're pretty tied up with the first past the post thing, and it's spoiling a lot of stuff for getting other parties a chance of getting in. We saw that with UKIP. What are we to do? What can we do? We're ordinary people, and we're brought up to be law-abiding, religious, all these things that hold us back from being the savages that we want to be. And we, you know, when we got Brexit, The media were with us. The media had turned around and started to be with us. The media are not going to be with us on this time. And we've got to have the same thing that we had with Brexit, where people that never voted before went out and voted. People were fed up, they had the dukes up and they said, right, we're doing this now. We are voting against the government, what they want us to do. And it was a proud moment, you know, when we got that, because we live in a town where Labour have been in for 75 years. And we had 58% for Brexit.
It's the same as where I'm from, Mansfield. It was Labour all my life until Ben Bradley got in because of Brexit, actually.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic to see. While I was going around knocking on doors, I was seeing a lot of people saying quietly, yes, we are for Brexit, but I still didn't think we'd ever win. I think we Vote Leave had a chance in hell of winning, but we still worked hard. And on that night, I realised that actually it was going to, after Farage conceded, a few hours later it became obvious we were going to win. It was a euphoric moment, it was fantastic. But the way we get there, again, we won't have to direct democracy again, so we won't have a vote in that same way. The way we get there is by being noisier than the opposition. And right now, the vocal minority are much louder than us on these woke issues of trans, of sexuality, of marriage, whatever topic, they are much louder than we are. So that's all that they hear, that's all that Westminster hears, whether it's mainstream media or politicians. We've just got to stop being silent. We've got to be a lot louder. But we can drown them out easily. There's a lot more of us than there are them. But we're so shy and embarrassed about our beliefs. We've got to stand up for our beliefs. Like the bloke said earlier, and they're going to call us names anyway. Just get up there and say, look, as an Englishman, I believe X, Y, Z, and I want a government that represents that. Because MPs are fickle. They will go whichever way their constituents are going to tell them to go. Because they want to be in power. They just want to be in a position. So if we say, look, this is what we believe. This is why we see people like Steve Bacon going all woke now, because he knows that the demographics of his constituency are changing dramatically, have changed rapidly over the last few years. So he's saying, oh, I need to be appealing to the black people more, so I'm going to say Black Lives Matter is a good thing, let's take a knee, blah, blah, blah. Whether he believes it or not, the reason he's gone woke is because he wants to keep his job. So we've got to let them know if they want to keep their job, they've got to go along with our values, not theirs. That's the way we go.
So, question just at the back.
Yeah, just a quick one. You made the point about you think that you will want Labour to get in, kind of thing. I mean, I wouldn't go so far. I think it may be somewhat of an inevitability. Historically, whenever we've talked about the sort of fringe centre-right parties banding together, we've kind of gone, it's not a good idea, because then you'll split the vote and Labour will get in. If it's possibly somewhat of an inevitability anyway, might not this be the time for... I know Nigel Farage touched on it on his GB News show, but basically said he can't do it alone. And Calvin, you said you tried to get people together. I mean, I voted for the Brexit Party in 2019, despite voting for Remain, because, obviously, I believe in democracy, but also because I read about becoming the Reform Party and the things they wanted to do. So I will argue against not reading the manifesto and things that they said they're going to do. What I'm trying to say is, if the Reform reclaims the heritages and the rest, now we're to sort of band together and start coming up with ideas and working together. If the next election's kind of going to be a bit of a moot point anyway, could it not be sort of playing the long game and actually maybe bringing over long-time, lifelong Conservative voters over to this new idea, which is grounded in common sense and reality?
Yeah, it could be. We need a momentum, we need a movement to build up. And that does need a figurehead, it needs a leader. And we need Nigel Farage to stop flirting with the idea and say, look, I'm going to get back into politics, I'm going to lead this movement, get behind me. That's what we need. So we need to keep pressurising him and encouraging him to stand up again.
Have you spoken to him, Calvin?
Yeah, all the time.
It's obvious that we need Nigel Farage. It's obvious. And people will coalesce around that, including you.
I am so
And
sorry.
me.
Well, look, so, gentleman here and then the lady at the back.
Calvin,
Question from a Christian perspective. Given that
Speak up.
given the mainstream denominations have capitulated to culture and are therefore in significant decline, what do you see the shape of the church, the true church, being in 10, 20 years' time?
It's a good parallel actually, because the Church of England is dying because it is capitulating on things like saying that two men can get married or that people get rebaptised if they change their sex, even though they can't do that. and there's women bishops and priests, and all kinds of issues. It's chasing society, and therefore it's dying, much in the same way that the Conservative Party is. I think that's a good thing. I think that the Church of England needs to die, because there is a true faith in this country. There are lots of Christians that withhold the faith within them, and they don't have a union, they don't have a body to get behind. So the Church of England needs to die, the same way the Conservative Party needs to die, so something else can rise up like a phoenix from the ashes. If we look at any other country around the world that isn't woke, South America, most of Africa, Asia, the church is growing, it's thriving. And over here, England, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and America, it's dying. And people can't draw the correlations. They can't see, what are we doing in these countries that's making it flop? In these countries, it's really successful. So they need to just go under. We need to separate church and state as well, I think. I don't think it's helpful that the Church of England has so many privileges within the establishment, because it feels like, and it thinks it is, a public body. We saw that over COVID, when they weren't looking out for people's spiritual well-being, they were just acting like another public institution, part of government.
You had a bishop that actually said, if you're unvaccinated, do not come to church. Now that reminded me of the leper approaching Jesus. And if Jesus had said to the leper, go away because you're a leper, I don't want to know you.
No, Jesus spent time with the lepers, but of course, we can't even draw parallels between lepers and COVID, because COVID is the cold or a flu at worst, and leprosy is an actual illness.
How can you be that hypocritical as a man of the flock to turn people that are unvaccinated away when they might need?
They're assuming that because he's a man of the cloth, he has faith. Not everyone in the church has faith in him. They've lost their way. They're chasing another god. And I don't know who that is or what it is, other than wokeness.
They're destroying their own church.
But they think they're doing good, so we can't persuade them otherwise. They've just got to drive it all the way down. It is in managed decline. We need that to accelerate.
You've got the lady at the back. You wanted to ask a question?
I should have really said this really, but we're just getting a little bit too passionate and stuff. But basically, it's all like the stuff on Farage, whereas a lot of the stuff he says you agree on, then I think he really I discredited when he was saying last year, oh let's bring Tony Blair and that, and he was supporting him and everything, all the vaccine mandate. And then from there, they can't really be trusted, and all the damage Tony Blair has done to this country.
Tony Blair might be the devil himself from comments. You're right. No one is perfect. And Farage did fall for a lot of the COVID stuff. I can forgive him because he's come around and he's actually fought back in the other direction. It took me a while to get over the fact that well, he told us to I was standing for the Brexit Party in Broxtowe against Sam Supri. He told us, I was one of the people that had to stand down. He told us last minute, we're no longer standing. So all these seats were going. And that felt like a betrayal for the longest. It took a long time to forgive him for that. But he is the figurehead, he is the one person that can unite a lot of right.
Yeah, he does highlight a lot of stuff.
We need it.
The lady at the back and then the gentleman behind.
Rick Mail, Justice Soul, said, destroy your television sets now. You must listen to no orders. That's all I can tell you from this point of humanity. Believe him, rest his soul. He went running, he came back and died of a heart attack, I'm sure as many of you know. I am incredibly worried about the ability to express what we really feel and talk truth. And I believe there is a truth out there. And I think this is beyond politics. I think we're going down a political piece here, which I don't think is right. I think we need to be saying, how can we really retain the right to speak, the right to be honest, the right to express our values and our thoughts and expression of our ideas. We are currently moving more and more towards a totalitarian state. What can we do to stop that?
I think you answered your own question. Turn off the TV. I know I say that as someone who's employed to be on TV, but it's the best advice I can give. Turn over the channel to TV News, or otherwise turn it off. The amount of constant indoctrination that comes through those pipes, it's not just TV now, is it? It's on social media, it's in the papers, it's everywhere we look. Just coming into Manchester, way here, it's rainbow flags left, right and centre. You've got, just everywhere you look, there's someone shoving something down your throat, so it's difficult to avoid it now. Mail was right in turning the TV off. If we do that more often and stop listening to 24/7 news, we'll be in a much better place. When I go on holiday and I ignore my phone, I feel a lot better, I feel a lot healthier, and actually a lot of stuff doesn't affect me.
Okay, man at the back, if we can start keeping questions as short as we can.
I will, but before I do that, I'll say I've stopped saying television and I've started saying telescreen, which I think is more apt. The question is, Steve Baker has gone woke because he wants to keep his job. in time we expected politicians to make, MPs particularly, to make their living other than by being politicians?
I've always thought the opposite. I think we need to pay our politicians more, so that A, we attract a better calibre of person, because the calibre of politicians right now is probably the lowest it's ever been, especially in the Labour Party. The number of clowns that are sitting in that palace is beyond a joke. They're supposed to represent us. But also, then if we pay them more, we can stop them from doing second jobs and make sure they're dedicated to representing us as their constituents. That's the approach that I would take.
Oh, that would make things even worse than they are, sure. Well then, that's my question. I only have one question.
Very short question. Have you ever been invited onto the BBC?
Yeah, I go on the BBC all the time. I'm always happy to do the BBC.
I never watched
it. So that's why I do it. So the BBC don't pay, most of the time they don't pay, but I know that they always have a far left perspective on the panels. So if I can go on and offer a bit of balance, I will. What I won't do is Channel 4, because Channel 4 are vile, and they try to trap you, and they get you these gotcha moments to set you up. And I've actually had, for a number of documentaries, I've refused from them, because last time I did one, they took my answers from one question and put them on another question and tried to make it look like I'm saying something wrong. It's disgusting what they do. So I won't always say no to Channel 4, but BBC, they play fair even though they're biased, if that makes any sense.
That is. Sorry, Doctor.
One of the things I like about you is, aside from your intellect, you're very well composed. There's a few people like yourself on our side that don't. To quote the left, it's on a spectrum. Like you've got Tommy Robinson, who's a bit overly confrontational, but you've got Jordan Peterson, who's a bit too sincere, and he wasn't ready for the BBC and everyone else. How do you? Is it just a default setting for yourself, the way you're so well composed, or do you have to prepare yourself before you go on interviews? How do you do that?
That's very kind of you. So I just. Honestly, I don't see anything special about myself. I'm just a regular Mansfield Midlands lad. Where I grew up, everyone kind of says and thinks it's the same thing that I do. And this is why I get amazed when people say, oh, what you said on TV is fantastic. Like, normal people think and say these things all the time. It's just I'm one of the rare people that has a platform to do it, I think. And also, actually, one of the reasons I don't get, so I don't like the panels on TVs where they go, because I don't relate to that. I like to hear people and speak. But one of the reasons I do that is because I grew up in a house full of women. While they were all bickering amongst each other, I'd just sit there and eat my chips and whatever and get on with it. And then when they finished, then I'd say my piece. So I learned through osmosis.
The question from this side. Sorry, I was going to go on.
Considering how much public opinion and their ability to engage is shaped by social media, Elon Musk making over Twitter, it's actually going to make a difference long term.
I think he already has. And I don't worship him. I don't see him as a hero. I don't think he's particularly right-wing or conservative. But what he is good at is being a free speech absolutist. And he's already he's restored Trump. He's already looking to restore a lot of suspended accounts. And he's going to expose, he said he's going to expose what's been going on to quash free speech in Twitter for so long. And I think we'll see there's been a bit of rigging of US elections, and we'll see there's been a bias against people on the right in the UK and abroad. And it might expose what's been going on further afield within politics and outside of politics, which goes to the mess that we're in right now. I think social media has a lot to blame for where we are right now. You know, the idea that Facebook banned the conversation around the Wuhan labs, and we now know that that's where COVID came from. The fact that Twitter also blocked people from saying things. And this idea that Trump inspired the January the 6th insurrection, and they restored his account. The last two tweets were actually saying, no, let's be peaceful, let's not do anything rash or incite violence. So I think he would be fantastic for Twitter, but it won't last very long. Apple are already talking about banning Twitter from their store. He will probably have to end up releasing his own mobile phone, and then the networks might ban his phone. It goes on and on because the lefties and the liberals own everything, they run everything. So I don't know how long he will be around, but I think it's great. In fact, I think the best thing he could do would be to buy Twitter and close it.
Yes, he was talking about this.
First thing is to free the box he won. I've ignored this. Gentleman with the hat.
Yes, if people don't vote for change, everything stays the same as it is, where do you see the country in 20 years?
We are at a crossroads right now. I do think Nick was right, he said we've been on a decline, but I don't think it was post-World War II, I think it's from the start of World War I, when the British Empire ceased to exist, when we put all our resources into fighting evil around the world, which was a good thing for us to do. That was the start of the end of us as a country, not just as an empire. And I think right now, after 100 years of that decline, we're at a point where we are either going to embrace wokeness as a country and silence dissent, and we'll enter totalitarianism under WF rule, which is all together, or we'll become a predominantly Islamic country, which will have the same effect in that we won't be able to speak our minds, we'll be able to do what we like, we will have freedoms that are rooted in common law, which come from the Bible. Or we will fight back and we'll maintain our values. But I actually do think it's a slim chance right now. We have to give it everything we've got if we really do care about this country. We believe it and we love it. It is now or never. Because in 10, 20 years' time, I don't think this place will be a recognisable country.
You have read in Norway's part of the curriculum is George Orwell 1984, who I feel we are going very near. I can't see Norway going there because this part of the curriculum, we need to discuss it in the class. That is why we doesn't have the wokeness either.
Yeah, no, you're right. It does feel like we're living in 1984 and or the Brave New World at sometimes. And this is why they try and ban those two books actually in a lot of schools, because they know what people see what's going on. We've got wrong think, we've got the idea that you're having the wrong thoughts, you've got the wrong opinions. Like Nick said earlier, I get that a lot. You know, because you're black, you have to think this way, or people, if they're LGBT, you have to think another way. They are policing our thoughts, and they're doing a lot of that through policing our words, policing our language, what books we're allowed to read, what we're allowed to teach. I think the best way to get around that is by letting people read these books, educating people on what the approach is, and teaching about communism. I don't think we teach about communism enough in schools, because all of this is neo-Marxism, that's what it is. A lot of it comes from the Frankfurt School in 1924, was it? The Marxists met together and said, how do we destroy Western society? Well, through entryism, get people in key positions in all the institutions, take over academia, take over the police, take over the governments. And it took them, 100 years. But they got there. It really was good.
A lot of people don't know this yet. They won't.
This is why it's important to teach.
Once you've seen the Matrix, you can't not see it.
Because we teach about Nazism, we teach about why Nazism is evil, National Socialism. But why communism has killed far more people around the world than National Socialism ever has. So why am I teaching about that?
Yeah.
Yes, lady there. You speak loud, sorry.
I'll ask him when I leave here tonight. He's a good man, Sean.
My point is just a little bit more specific to critical race theory. Well, I've been having somebody disputes with my in big meetings, you know, being presented white privilege, unconscious bias. So what I've been doing is really jamming up on CRT and putting its ideological points there. And I've been doing this for the last 12 months, and as I said to Nick in previous segments, it's ideologically flimsy, there's nothing there. And when you push back against it, nobody says that. This idea is big disciplinaries. There's total utter silence when you expose it politely in its own words, in its own language. And the only time I've had a conversation after putting stuff on screen, and what I've done, I've linked the critical race theory and put the words with the ideological underpinnings of the Frankfurt School of Marxism, and that really got a rattle. And then when I had the follow-up conversation afterwards, I pointed the links there, how it was linked to it, and they were absolutely astonished and gobsmacked. So I think one of the key things, if everybody can understand critical race theory, you Discourse's James Lindsay website, go for that, in their own workplaces, expose it for what it is, but link it very often to Marxism in literally every sentence that you do. So you know we have somebody on campus. Critical race theory, Frankfurt School of Marxism, systemic oppression, Karl Marx, the most appalling racist going. You want that ideology, you're going about Britain. Once you start putting it in those terms, in its own words, it doesn't believe in individual rights, group rights. I'm not boring any longer, but there's two things to know. It's very weak and feeble when you go up against it. And once you start linking it to Marxism and its origins, they are gobsmacked. They don't do anything. And you seem more aware of it, Captain, but I just think you've got to get that Marxist stain on it.
Yeah, that's a good approach. Sometimes it works. I'm glad it's working in your environment. Johnny was saying earlier that he didn't work in his environment because you raised.
Sorry, say it's quite loud.
You put forward some backlash against the CRT stuff.
Yeah, when I was a lecturer at university, yeah.
But they weren't necessarily open to it.
A nearby one I won't name, but it ends in Metropolitan University.
But my point is, you're no longer there, are you?
I don't work there anymore.
But we have to take the risk, you're right, in exposing it.
You don't want Marxism was associated with it.
That's it for this session. Can I first of all, let's thank Calvin for coming up to Manchester. Big round of applause.